that shines a light on the American justice system and its role in empowering the powerful to take from you. The justice system is the only branch of your government where an individual, rather than the collective, can make the system act for you. It puts power in the individual's hands, but it's broken and being used against you at a time when you need it most.
And we are live on Who Wrote That Up for You. Today is Monday, November 14th, 2022. I'm Sonia Ebron, a co-founder at Courtroom 5.
And I'm Deborah Sloan, the other co-founder of Courtroom 5.
And we have a marvelous show lined up for you today. In a few moments, we will speak with Delaney Edge. Delaney is an aspiring lawyer. She is a recent graduate of the University of North Carolina here in Chapel Hill. And we'll talk with her about the process of applying to law school and getting in. Before we get there, though, Deborah, what is on your mind today? What is our issue of the day?
Okay, the issue of today is ethics or not ethics, and it's part of our peculiar law things installation. Specifically, lawyers basically they're tasked with advocating for their clients, and that means that they can do things that they feel are ethical, even though the rest of us might feel are unethical things, such as deceiving your opponent, especially if they're pro se, setting a trap for your opponent so they can fall into it if they don't know civil procedure and those kinds of things. Sometimes not telling your client that they don't stand a chance, things like that. But the thing is that in the world of lawyership, basically anything goes as long as it looks like advocacy for your client. And for me, it's sometimes that can be a double-edged sword where it just really looks like the lawyer is just completely misbehaving. And in the law world, it's just Wednesday, So so that's my issue. That's my issue for today.
That is funny. Yeah. We've talked before, I think, here about the, ethics of a lawyer. I mean, when you're advocating, when you take on a client, your responsibility is to advocate for that client. You're working solely in that client's interest. And, to the extent you're not blatantly breaking the law or anything like that, you don't want to get your client in that sort of trouble, then anything goes. I mean, litigation in particular is hardball. I mean, it is a battle royale. And so, sure, I mean, if you need to bend the rules a bit, or you need to hide the ball, or you
Mm,
need to deceive the opposing side, then that's what you do on behalf of your client. That is the ethical, that is the ethical requirement for anybody advocating for somebody else. And that's what lawyers do. And so, yeah, sure, that tends to fly in the face of how the rest of us view ethics. And I know a lot of pro se litigants are really often get really, really upset about the opposing counsel and their antics, if you will, their behavior. But you got to understand they're just doing their job. I mean, so yeah, some people say lawyer ethics is an oxymoron based on how we perceive ethics, but there is that there is that difference. And so if you're going to take on that profession, you have to be prepared to bend the rules on behalf of your clients sometimes. I appreciate you bringing that up. That's always a good reminder and something for us to share with pro se litigants when we are talking about these issues. So thanks for bringing that up. Well, Who Wrote That Up for You is sponsored by Courtroom 5. At Courtroom 5, we believe the courts belong to the people, in particular to the people who used them. And we, the people, are coming to claim our courts. And so if you are in court without a lawyer, or you need to sue someone and can't find a lawyer to represent you, get yourself over to courtroom5.com. Try a limited version of our services for free, and we hope to provide some relief for you there. At this time, it is my great pleasure to welcome onto the show Delaney Edge. Delaney, thank you so much for joining us on Who Wrote That Up for You.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
This is fantastic. So I mentioned at the outset that you are an aspiring lawyer. I should also share with the audience you are a former intern.
Yes.
Courtroom 5, you number of internships to prepare you for a legal career. Tell us about some of those experiences, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I have 4 major internships under my belt or similar work that I've done. And the first actually came when I was in high school. And as a senior in high school, we did something called a capstone project in which we had to go out and find a professional in a field that we were interested in studying in and essentially shadow them for a certain amount of hours. I think it may have been 50 at the time, and then do a write up on a topic kind of within that larger career. It was about 25, 30 pages, I think, and present on it in front of people. And for my capstone, I decided to focus on the topic of law because I've known for quite a while that I want to be an attorney. And so I did my my capstone up in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, which is a little town up in the mountains. It's very rural. And I shadowed a judge named Judge Jeannie Houston. She's retired now, but I definitely think that was my first step in really learning about the behind the scenes of the legal system, beyond what you see on TV and beyond what the media might say, or people who, you know, may have had different experiences firsthand. And I learned a lot in that internship, or that experience specifically, in the terms of criminal law, because all my other ones have been in civil litigation or civil law. And for criminal law, following around a judge who's dealing with, 5 to 6 cases a day, having conversations with attorneys, there's not a lot of client interaction in the role of a judge outside of the courtroom. But that was a really good learning experience for me, and seeing how exactly lawyers also interact with their clients, because I was in that environment. And my 3 other ones, which were, as I said, had to do with civil law, where I worked with an independent attorney up in Wilkesboro, and he kind of went between criminal and civil law. His main area of study was criminal law, but I was helping him out with some of the research for civil litigation. I believe he did some sort of family law, which is why there is kind of that crossover between criminal and civil. And I did a lot of research for him. I kind of started learning the jargon, the terms of how lawyers interact. And as you were saying, Deborah, there's the ethics that you see, because one thing as a lawyer is when the professional code of ethics, you're not supposed to take cases in subjects that you're not specialized to take. So there were instances there where he would have a case come up, somebody would offer him money to do it, but he had to turn them down because it wouldn't have been right for him to try to defend them in court when he didn't have that specialized knowledge. And as you said, Sonia, I worked here at Courtroom 5 as an intern twice. And I really think this is one of the most important internships I've had, because it really opened my eyes to how important it is to have access to civil litigation and civil legal information when you can't afford an attorney, or even just don't want to get one because of how expensive they are and because of how long the process and how confusing it can be. And in doing the work that I did here, where I was creating educational videos last time, I was helping you guys out with that project, and doing a lot of research on statutes and other projects. It really helped me narrow my focus into understanding that I do want to be involved in advocacy law or public interest law. It's something like that, in which you're really helping people who don't quite have the access or don't have the understanding that is a lot of times afforded to people in criminal law based on national statutes and national court cases, which have made it so. And then the fourth one I did was at UNC Chapel Hill. I worked in the legal office for them, which was very different from anything I'd done before. It was because it was a legal firm. It wasn't an independent attorney. It wasn't a rural area. It was big city, huge office, a lot of employees. And so that was my first introduction to civil law from that perspective. In the bigger cases, these are some of the cases, like they had an affirmative action one while I was there, is going to the Supreme Court. And it was really great to be able to talk to people like that as well, to see their perspective when they don't have the same type of clients that the criminal lawyers have. They have clients who pay them to represent them. They aren't necessarily just afforded them.
That's extraordinary. Delaney, I am still trying to find out what I want to do when I grow up. And yet, and yet here you are, so well prepared for the career that you've chosen already. I just want to congratulate you on the deliberation, I guess, that you have given to your career choice and your preparation for it.
Thank you.
It's just extraordinary. Let me ask you now. So you studied U.S. history,
Yes.
and I think there's lots to learn there. There's lots of ways that can prepare you for a legal career. But there are others. We see people studying political science or economics or English or many other fields. What is it that helped you decide on U.S. history in preparation for your legal career?
Well, I think the main reason was because since I knew I wanted to attend law school eventually, I didn't know exactly when it would happen. I wanted to study something I enjoy. So that was my main reason for picking US history. However, I also did recognize that there is a analytical aspect to thinking about history and writing about history in a way that's helpful in looking at the legal code and events in the past between society and legal decisions or legislation that has been reinforced or struck down by legal cases. That's really important. And being a US history major, because I was doing a lot of firsthand research, looking at primary source documents and really having to think deeply about subject matter and finding themes. It's definitely helped me prepare for the heavy lifting I know I'm going to do in law school, where I'm reading essentially 150 years of court cases. I'm going to have to think about how those impacted society then and how they're still impacting society now. And just generally being able to think critically about what can we learn from the past that we can apply to the future to make sure certain things don't happen again, or what can we assume or just believe is going to happen from something new that hasn't been done before based on similar or adjacent attempts in the past.
And I love that thinking. I have to tell you, Delaney, as opposed to the lawyers we often run into who are focused on a single client and representing that client to the best of their ability, you seem to have a broader vision of what the law and lawyers in particular can do in shaping our history. And so I really appreciate that. Let's talk now then about the admissions process. You are involved in, taking the LSAT and, going through that whole very difficult process of getting into law school. How would you describe that process? What does it take to get into law school? What does it look like from your perspective now?
Yeah, it takes a lot of writing and a lot of proofreading for sure. I think for me, the worst part of the admissions is the LSAT, because it's a lot of logic. It's a lot of kind of like mind games almost. And it's not necessarily their main point or the main thing that they're looking at when you're trying to get admitted, but it's something that you want to do really well on, or you will get overlooked in a lot of cases. But in terms of actually looking at schools, and when I'm researching and I'm writing the why do I want to go to your school, or why do I enjoy this program that you offer? I would say that the biggest thing about it is making sure that you're able to tell a story with your writing. So they want to know that you're a good writer. They want to know that you can be concise, because legal writing can drone on and on and on. And they want to make sure that they have people who can learn and who can make these things accessible to who they're working with, no matter what age that they're working with. And so the way that you stand out as an applicant is to be able to tell a story that actually connects with your reader. because you have no clue who's reading your application. A lot of schools probably have 5 to 10 people reading an application, but you don't know who you're going to get. So it's making that human connection and not just making it all about, I want to go to law school, I want to, be successful at what I do. You want to explain to them what experiences you've had that have really solidified this desire, and how you intend to use your degree for good purposes once you've graduated.
Excellent, excellent. And so you also have to take the LSAT, and you have to get a certain score on it. And I don't know, what those metrics are,
Yeah.
but I remember taking like the SAT or the GRE and those sorts of standardized tests. And for me, at least, the more I took the test, the more I practiced taking the test, and actually, took the test, the better my scores were, right? Have
Yes.
you found the same, or what's your expectation around taking the LSAT multiple times?
Yeah, so I definitely am a proponent for it. I took the LSAT 3 times and I got better each time I did that. I will say part of this test is getting used to the format, because it is so different from something like the ACT or SAT, or even a GRE, the grad school, for like other graduate schools. Because again, it is a lot of mind games. It's how we're going to give you something and the answer is in there. You just have to find it. You have to bridge the gap. We've given you the 2 sides. You have to build the bridge to get from one area to the next. And so I definitely think getting used to that format is good, but it's also unfortunately a test where it's going to be based on luck. If you get a reading comprehension section where 2 of the 4 passages are subjects that you know about, like if I didn't get this on the test, but if I got 2 about US history, I'd have been set, because I wouldn't have had to take as much time. I wouldn't have had to, read through the lines, or I'm not very good at the scientific articles on there, just because it's a lot for me to read through and it's not something I'm used to reading. So again, in short, yes, you definitely get better the more you do it. However, it's not something that you just get to stop practicing once you've hit that your goal. You have to continuously keep studying, doing your flashcards, and taking the practice test or doing drills online.
That is great. Let's talk about the structure of the admissions process itself, right? It is a very structured process. You have to take the test, you have to fill out applications, as you've described. You have to appear in a certain way. There's a bias in every system, of course, but the bias here, do you have a sense of how that particular structure of the the law school admissions process biases the types of lawyers we're eventually going to have, the folks who are admitted to that system?
Yeah, well, I definitely think one positive thing I've noticed in the admissions test is they're not just looking at who is the best LSAT score. Because there is so much writing involved, they give you so many opportunities to explain who you are, so they can get a better idea of what your personality might be like, or where your moral compass may lean, things like that. And most law schools offer the opportunity to do a diversity statement, in which that's where people from underrepresented or underprivileged, socioeconomic statuses, races, religions, ethnicities, whatever it might be, it gives them a chance to give their voice a little bit of an extra, how do I say this, a little bit more exposure into the admissions process than I think it would have been a long time ago. So I definitely think there's a positive trend in our admissions process for law schools, and specifically looking for people who, if they haven't experienced issues with the legal system, they're looking for people who know that there still are issues, and who are willing to be the people who have an interest in changing it for the better, or even if they don't have, aspirations maybe that big, who are interested in helping on the lower levels. Because in my research, when I was looking at schools and whatnot, I think every single school I've looked at has the encouragement of pro bono work, or a pro bono pledge, in which they volunteer their time as a law student, and a lot of times in the decades after they graduated, to help certain organizations or the community that their law school is in, for people who can't afford lawyers in civil suits or to help out firms who may be overloaded in criminal or civil litigation. So that is really encouraging to see. And one other thing I find interesting as I did research too was there are many dual degrees offered. So these are kind of tailored for people who want to do who might want to do law, but also might not want to be a lawyer. You know, there are people who are politicians or CEOs who have law degrees. And I think it's really important that in the admissions, they do encourage people to apply to and look at these dual degree programs in government or public policy, because these are going to be legal system adjacent positions that can have a significant impact in the legal system and how it is run. Because if you have a legal degree and you know how it works and you know the issues, you know the history of it, but you're working in a government office and you have control over legislation, that's where the reform is going to happen. And these are the types of people that these programs are attracting. So I definitely think the admissions process is trending towards people who are more for the people, who are more willing to try to make their degree of use to everybody and not just self-serving.
It's really interesting. That's a fascinating reply, and I appreciate the thoughtfulness there. I am happy to hear that the admissions process is evolving and maybe trying to attract a different set because, you know, to me, you can look at other fields. In my field, engineering, right? You want people who have taken a chemistry course or some, you know, advanced math before you let them into college because they need to prove they can do that sort of work. I think when you look at the law and the legal profession now, certainly we need more diversity, as you pointed out. I think the last stat I saw, maybe 2% of the lawyers were African American, for instance, or that sort of thing. So obviously we need an admissions process that can help the legal profession better reflect the diversity of the population. But we also have a huge justice gap, right? And so we need to maybe evolve the admissions process more in a way that brings people like you who are interested in those issues, right, into the profession. Sort of grease the skids, if you will, so that we can have people who care about those issues, who care about diversity, and so on. Do you see the admissions process evolving in that way? Has it been your experience? In other words, the process that you are undergoing now, is it designed to solve those problems and others you might see in the profession?
Yeah, so I think I want to lean towards yes. I can't obviously give a super specific answer because I haven't worked in these fields for very long, and I haven't really worked in the field at all because I can't do that till I graduate law school. But I will say that there is definitely an emphasis on letting people who are from these underrepresented groups in law have a chance to put themselves or to make themselves stand out among applicants who all look the same or who all are kind of what is to be expected of a lawyer based on what they've looked like for the past 50 years, 50, 60 years. So, but beyond things like the diversity statement, there's also, there are, when you're going through the admissions, like the actual admissions, it'll ask you things about your ethnicity, your gender identity, your sexual orientation, things like that. So I don't know how those are used, or I don't know if that's just for reporting after people have been admitted, but there is, because these schools do recognize that a much lower percentage of African Americans or gay men or lesbian women do apply to these to be an attorney. They're trying to make sure that these individuals are getting as fair a shot as possible by making sure that they are able to stand out and not just get overlooked in the wave of all the people who they're used to seeing.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Delaney, thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciate the thoughtfulness of your responses and just the way you handle yourself. We have benefited from your character in the past. Wish you the best of luck. Would like to see many more lawyers with your preparation and deliberation in the choice of career. Best of luck to you, and we hope to have you on again soon.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
You bet. All right, Deborah, I think you have some video problems there. So I am going to handle our quiz for today. On Friday, we asked a true or false question. And the statement is a request for answers to interrogatories is a form of pleading. And is that true or false? The correct answer was false. In fact, a request for answers to interrogatory is a form of discovery or evidence collection. Our winner there was WL. Congratulations to WL there. All right. And so for tomorrow, the quiz is a fill in the blank here. The blank stage is where defendants explain why they are not liable. Again, the question is the blank stage is where defendants explain why they are not liable. And the potential responses, possible responses are A, a complaint, B, a trial, C, appeal, and D, answer. So you have the options of the complaint stage, the trial stage, the appeal stage, and the answer stage. If you'd like to send a answer to that question, please send your responses to quiz@courtroom5.com. That's quiz@courtroom5.com. And we'll be looking forward to seeing a winner there on tomorrow. All right. Well, I think, Deborah, I just want to, say again how happy I am to, first of all, to see Delaney again and to just, be able to speak with her and to see the progress that she's made since she left us. Looking forward to speaking to her again soon. That's all we have for you today. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. As always, we will see you tomorrow.
Are you feeling beleaguered, angry, or afraid, as if things are spinning out of control and you're powerless to stop them? It's easy to just let things slide and hope they don't get worse. But they often do get worse. The thing is, you're not powerless. Our courts belong to us, and their purpose is to give power to the powerless. Don't let your grievances pile up without redressing them. You can handle this in court. Or, if someone takes you to court, you can take them to school.